What's going on, everyone? Happy Monday to everyone. Hopefully everyone is doing well. Hopefully, if you're in the heat, you're staying inside and beating the heat. Time now for the Monday edition of the Climate Update for Monday, July 24th, 2023. Today we have to start off talking about Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia back on Friday and the Friday night had a tremendous historical rainfall event, and they had multiple months worth of rain within just a short period of time. Well, because of that, 4 people, including 2 children, are missing because of the heavy rains. And as far as I know, this story was last updated yesterday, or I believe actually on Saturday. As of today, on Monday, I have not seen any updates saying that they have found any of the missing people yet in Nova Scotia. So very sad to see. Taking a look at the United States picture, we do have several things going on. We do have this system in the Northeast, which actually at the moment is overperforming in places like upstate New York and even in Vermont, where there actually has become a flash flooding event. We do have some isolated scattered thunderstorms in Pennsylvania. It's not really all that impressive, but what I do want to show you is this, and it's going to be kind of hard for you to see. Vermont does not have the best radar. As you know, I've said it several times before, the Burlington radar is not that good, but as you can see here in upstate New York and places of western Vermont, there are some flash flood warnings, which again, you'll see the weather predictions that are forecast in a moment. It's only a marginal risk there today, so it should have probably been a slight risk. Taking a look at this, we do have this system which is coming down into Arkansas and places like Kentucky. This event, again, this is another event that has overperformed, and look what's with this. Trailing wildfire smoke. So when the Storm Prediction Center makes their forecast, they take a look at instability. They take a look at shear, moisture available. When they're looking, hey, should we issue a watch? They look at those parameters. But when you go to the SPC Mesoscale page, which is all the dynamics and parameters that forecasters use when forecasting severe weather and many other different events, the one thing that is not factored in, which as far as I know is not on there, there's no page that says, energy from wildfire smoke. And yet again, wildfire smoke is a contributing factor to this event. Look at it, right on its tail. You can see it here. Here's the thunderstorms. Look what's mixed in with it. Wildfire smoke. And that's going to lead us to something else we're going to talk about in a moment. All right, take a look at the national hazards. We do have the air quality issues that are up in the Great Lakes. I think that's going to probably seep its way, at least into Pennsylvania and Virginia. It won't be as bad as the previous weeks, but it's going to be bad enough. It's going to cause problems because coupled with that, you're going to have heat-related issues. Very hot conditions are coming for the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, all of the East Coast. What the folks in the South and Southwest have been experiencing is finally going to make its way to the rest of the country. And I'm not saying finally like, oh, yay, it's coming. No. It's coming, and unfortunately, it's not good. It's going to get really stinking hot. And take a look here. Here's your severe thunderstorm watch, which is up for the Ohio Valley and portions of Kentucky. Again, there was hardly even a marginal risk there earlier. And surprise, it got upgraded to a slight risk. They weren't going to issue a watch. I think it was 5% chance for a watch, but now there is one there. There's severe storms ongoing. And taking a look at this closely, do we have severe storms? Yes. Multiple severe storms that are not even in the watch area. Then we have a severe thunderstorm watch, which is up for portions of northeast Pennsylvania, New York, western Massachusetts, northwest Connecticut, and most of Vermont. So that is an ongoing issue as well. Let's take a look at radar here. You can see these thunderstorms. It's really gotten its act together across the Ohio Valley. Taking a look up here in New England, here's the rain that's moving into New Hampshire now. We do have more storms behind us. We do have some storms in Pennsylvania. Will these storms make it all the way to New Jersey, Philadelphia, Trenton, New York City? Uncertain whether they will or not. We'll just have to watch how that unfolds. In the mountainous region, just north of Salt Lake City, Idaho, up here in Wyoming, we do have ongoing showers and thunderstorms today. Some rainy conditions. Up here in the Pacific Northwest, we do have rain today, and that is what's helping to keep your temperatures below average in Washington and portions of Oregon. And in Florida, finally, we do have this system that is bringing rain to Florida today. It's been a rather wet stretch. We've seen these boundaries which have just stalled over Florida, and we do have an area of training thunderstorms that is setting up just west of the Tallahassee area. Let's take a look at the air qualities. We have to talk about the air quality. There is some bad air quality again in the Great Lakes region. It's not as bad as it was in the past, but I think as days progress, it is going to actually get worse as it moves southeast, because the wildfire smoke that is going to come again to the Mid-Atlantic region, it's going to be coupled with extremely hot conditions, high humidity, high dew points, and that's just a bad combination. Alrighty, moving on here. And real quickly, before I do move on, the West Coast is actually not doing all that bad. Some parts of California are moderate. There are some concerns, but look at these greens in the Four Corners region. Yes, haven't said that in a while. Alright, here's the Storm Prediction Center. As you can see, there is now a slight risk of severe weather today from Kentucky into Ohio and up in portions of upstate New York and portions of Vermont and northeast Pennsylvania. The biggest threats are wind and hail for today. Tomorrow there is a slight risk of severe weather. Portions of the Mid-Atlantic region. I suspect this will probably get expanded northward. I wouldn't be surprised if that marginal risk goes up into New York State, and a slight risk that could go almost up to New York City. There's some modeling guidance showing a line could get itself organized tomorrow. That's something we'll have to watch. And there also is a slight risk tomorrow of severe weather in the plains from Nebraska on up into the Dakotas. So that's an area we'll have to watch as well. And again, we do have this slight risk of severe weather on Wednesday across the Great Lakes. That's a day we're going to have to watch, and I'll show you on the models in a second. Taking a look at the Weather Prediction Center, only a marginal risk in the Northeast. But I stress, there's already ongoing flash flood warnings. That probably should have been a slight risk. Marginal risk across the Ohio Valley, and a marginal risk out west today. Day 2, we do see there is now a slight risk of flash flooding up for portions of the Mid-Atlantic, and I do agree with this. There could be some flash flooding threats tomorrow in this region. Moving on now to the National Hurricane Center, we do have to talk about post-tropical cyclone Don. That's not really much left of it. When you take a look at infrared satellite, it's pretty much just a little swirl in the atmosphere. 45-mile-per-hour winds, 1,007 millibars, and its movement is east-northeast at 20 miles per hour, and it's probably not even going to be on this map much longer. We do have a couple other disturbances out there. This one is at 0%. Then we do have one east of the Leeward Islands, which is at 20%. And it wouldn't surprise me, let's go to a 7-day graphic, it wouldn't surprise me if we see more pop up here soon, because modeling is suggesting, and we can actually show it to you here. Take a look here on infrared. You can see there are more waves coming off of Africa. Nothing is terribly organized, and you can see here's what's left of Don right up here. If you want to take a look at it a little bit closer, why not? Here's the remnants of Don. It's just a little swirl in the atmosphere. That's all that's left of Don. Alright, we want to take a look at some modeling here. Here's the FV3 model. Let's take a look at that for today. It does show those isolated storms which are ongoing up in Pennsylvania and up in the Northeast. It does show scattered thunderstorm activity, which will continue into the evening. What it does also show is that Ohio Valley system, but look behind us. It is missing some of the activity, and the activity is actually better on radar than what it's showing, which is a concern for tomorrow. If we know this system overperformed today, chances are it'll overperform tomorrow. But look what it does in the Mid-Atlantic region. It does show severe storms, even up into southern New England. So I think the Weather Prediction Center, or excuse me, the Storm Prediction Center is going to adjust north, and the Weather Prediction Center as well for flash flooding. I think you could include New York City in that, because if activities overperform today, chances are a similar deal will happen tomorrow. Then we have to watch Wednesday night into Thursday. Look at the end of this model run across the Great Lakes. There's another mesoscale convective system. Let's switch models. I want to show you the RGEM model, and let's show you what that has. It does show the same system, but just slightly more south. I'm concerned there could be a mesoscale convective system that sets up Wednesday evening and goes into Thursday. Look at this. This is a fairly impressive system, and as I advance this, it does make its way towards the New York City area, towards New Jersey, maybe just north of Philadelphia. I don't know precisely where it's going to track. These mesoscale convective systems are very tricky, and we're now looking at this, as you can see here, 82 hours out. That's pretty far out in the mesoscale land, but this will be the leading engine of what becomes a stalled boundary. There's either going to be a west to east flow or a northwest to southeast flow. There's some discrepancy in the modeling with that, and I will now show you the GFS for this same system. Then we'll take a look at temperatures, because the heat is such a critical aspect that we have to talk about. And look at this. The GFS is showing a rather robust area of convection in the mid-Atlantic for tomorrow. So again, I think the flash flooding threat is there, and maybe a possible severe weather threat as well. Isolated wind reports and hail. And you know what? We're not going to leave out tornadoes, because we've seen so many events turn into surprise tornado warnings. So it could happen. And here's the GFS. GFS is also showing the system, but it has it slightly more north. And you can see the boundary. It gets hung up in upstate New York, which is north of other modeling. So there are a lot of questions where this boundary is going to stall, and it could stall for several days. While it stays stalled, as you see here, multiple disturbances right along it. Here's Friday night. Look at this. I mean, there could be a mesoscale convective system at some point over the weekend. The boundary remains stalled. Then it tries to become a northwest to southeast flow, which actually would be a better setup for a convective system of some sort. And wherever this does stall, let's backtrack for a second. Wherever this does stall, there will be flash flooding. There will be the potential for training storm systems along this. But again, we're going to see multiple disturbances. It may get hung up in the mid-Atlantic all weekend. So I know if you're in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, you just enjoyed a really nice weekend. This upcoming weekend, say south of New York State, is not looking as good. And to be honest with you, there's potential for even New England getting bad. Alright, let's rewind this for a second. We also want to take a look down here in Florida. Florida is going to see multiple days of, again, showers and thunderstorms. The West Coast is looking quiet, but I can tell you it is going to be hot. Taking a look as we go into the longer range in the next week, that northwest to southeast flow does remain at play, and we could see multiple mesoscale convective systems potential for next week. Look at this. Here's one right here, and as I advance this, you can see some more activity does come in. And yes, this is another northwest to southeast flow, so wildfire smoke is at play. And look at the long range GFS. We're now 240 hours. We won't go any further. Hello. Yes, a potential tropical system. Again, we have to watch these waves off of Africa. Eventually, one of them could produce. Could it be this week? Could it be multiple weeks from now? Sooner or later, one of them is going to produce as the dust does start to subside. Alright, let's take a look at temperatures now, shall we? And for that, we will use the European model. Why not? And taking a look at the European model for temperatures, let's backtrack this. We're going to start off, though. Very hot conditions will continue in the southwest and in the northeast. The northeast is going to be hot through about Friday. Then things will get better. But for the rest of the country, look at this. Just very hot weather. And you can see as we're now at Thursday, yeah, places like Philadelphia, 95 degrees. Dallas, 100 again. Even Chicago starts to get into the heat as we go Thursday and into Friday. Look at Friday. Friday's probably the peak of the heat. I mean, much of Pennsylvania, upper 90s. Look at the widespread 100s being shown on the European model. This is extremely concerning. Heat indexes above 100. This is record-breaking historic heat. We are likely going to see many records broken with this heat. Even Chicago. I know you're on the northern fringe of this. 90s are coming for you. It's coming late this week. Then as we get towards the weekend, it may start to get a little bit better, but there's a lot that depends on that boundary I was telling you about. How far south that thing gets really depends on what your temperatures are. Should that stall longer, which does look possible now, places like the mid-Atlantic, the heat would not only stay, it would build. And there would be some extreme instability with this. So that means that you're likely going to see plenty of fuel to add to the fire for any storm potential. Look at this. DC area, potentially near 100 on Saturday, according to the GFS. Finally, as we head into Sunday, things do get better. It gets suppressed a little bit, but Texas, the plains, it continues to be extremely hot, and this is something I'm concerned about. But look at this as we head into next week. The Northeast gets a heck of a lot better, and that could last for a prolonged period of time. Let's take a look at the days 1 through 7 precipitation. You can see here, there is some precipitation expected over the Northeast. I think this is likely underdone for the Great Lakes through to the Mid-Atlantic, because we're going to be talking about that stalled boundary later in the week, and with that there'll be convection potential, where stalled convection could produce some flash flooding. I do agree with what it's showing for the rest of the country, and yes, this is not good for the drought in Texas. Very dry conditions for you. Let's take a look at the latest temperature and precipitation outlooks. These are just updating as we're doing this video. So as you can see here now, in the south, well above average temperatures. It's going to be extremely hot in the south. Please stay hydrated. Please stay indoors in the air conditioning if you can. If you don't have air conditioning, go to a cooling center. The west is also going to be hot, with exceptions to coastal California, near normal in the Great Lakes, and yes, below normal in the Northeast. I just showed you the end of the European. It's a 6 to 10 day time frame, and we do agree with that. Let's see what the update from the 8 to 14 days shows, and continuing below normal in the Northeast, above average in the South, and above average in the Pacific Northwest. Again, if you can stay out of the heat, by all means do so. Near normal in the northern plains, and a 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook does show above average precipitation from the Four Corners region on up into the northern plains. Below average now for places like Louisiana and the Gulf Coast. Florida, slightly below average, but I do think daily showers and thunderstorms will happen, at least from Orlando on southward. And taking a look at the east, we could see a slightly above average to maybe even a well above average from the Carolinas on up into the Northeast. We'll have to watch how that unfolds. And 8 to 14 days continues to be above average on the east. And I don't know if they're factoring in the potential of a tropical system or maybe a stalled boundary, but they are going rather robust here. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And look at this here in the Rockies, above average precipitation. Alrighty, folks, that does it for today's climate and weather update. We'll have another one again tomorrow. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel down below. If you know anyone that's looking for a daily weather forecast or climate updates, by all means, share it with your friends, family, or whoever needs to see this. I will see you all again next time. But until I see you again next time, if you're into extreme heat, stay cool, everyone. Have a great evening.